Hey everybody, welcome back to Quantitative Reasoning, and today we're in section 2.5 talking about survey problems. So last time in section 2.3 we learned how to read and draw Venn diagrams. Today in section 2.5 we're going to do two things with our Venn diagrams. We're going to use a Venn diagram to visualize a survey's results, and then given a survey's results we're going to draw the matching Venn diagram and use that to answer questions about the survey. So here we go. First of all, let's just remember from last time that whenever we see the word and, that means an intersection of two sets. The word or means a union of two sets. The word not indicates a complement. And if we ever see the word but in a problem, that also is going to indicate an intersection, just like the word and. In English, those two words have different meanings, but as far as logic and set notation are concerned, they have the same effect on the outcome of whatever we're working on, so we treat them like they mean the same thing. So first up, example 1. It says, in a survey on musical tastes, respondents were asked, do you listen to classical music? Do you listen to jazz? The survey results are summarized in the Venn diagram shown here. So, first question, how many respondents listened to classical music? Okay, well that's all of the people in the circle for the classical music set. So that includes the 55 people who like only classical music and the 20 people who like classical and jazz. So 55 plus 20 is going to be 75 total people who listen to classical music. And then part B says how many respondents listen to jazz. So if we look at the circle that represents the set of people who listen to jazz, that would include the 70 people who listen to only jazz plus the 20 people who listen to both classical and jazz for a total of 90 people. Then in part C, how many respondents listen to both classical music and jazz? So, well, that's easy. That's just the people in the overlapping area. So that's 20 people who listen to both. And then in part D, how many respondents listen to classical music or jazz? So that would be everybody inside these two sets. So that would be the 55 plus the 20 plus the 70 for a total of 145 people. Okay, let's keep going. Part E. How many respondents listened to classical music but not jazz? Okay, so if we go back to the set for classical music, the people who listened to classical but not jazz would be just the 55. How many respondents listened to jazz but not classical? Okay, so look at the set for jazz. The 70 people here listen to jazz, but the 20 people here listen to both. So the ones who listen to just jazz and not classical would be the 70. Part G, how many respondents listen to neither classical music nor jazz? And so that would be the people that are outside of these two sets entirely. So that would be these 30 people here. And then how many people were surveyed? Well, that would be the total number of people in the universal set. So 50 plus 20 plus 70 plus 30 gives us a total of 175 people. Okay, now we're ready to use the survey's description to draw our own Venn diagram and answer some questions about the survey. So here's what we're going to be doing in the next couple of examples. We're going to use the survey's description to define sets, so we'll have to figure out what the sets are, and then we'll draw the Venn diagram. We'll use the survey's results to determine the cardinality for each region in the Venn diagram, in other words, the number of respondents that fall into each region. And the way to go about this is to start with the intersection of the sets, the innermost region, and work outward. So we'll start from the middle where all the sets intersect, and then we will work out. And then once we get the Venn diagram completed, we'll use that diagram to answer the questions just like we did in example 1. So here we are in example 2. It says, a survey is taken that asks 2,000 randomly selected adults in the United States and Mexico the following question: do you agree or disagree that the primary cause of poverty is societal injustice? The results of the survey showed that 1,060 adults agreed with the statement. 400 U.S. adults agreed with the statement. So total for the U.S. and Mexico, there were 1,060 adults who agreed with the statement, but 400 of those were from the U.S. Now, it says if 900 adults were surveyed in the United States, here are the questions they want us to answer. How many people in Mexico agreed with the statement, and how many people in Mexico disagreed with the statement? And so step 1, remember, said to define the sets and draw a Venn diagram. Now, I know it's tempting to skip the step where you define the sets, but I really think it pays if you'll take just a minute and think about what the sets ought to be before you jump into drawing the diagram. So we're going to say here that the set US is the set of US adults that were surveyed, and the set A is the set of people surveyed who agree with the statement. So I don't know about you, but my first thought was to have two sets, like a set for US and a set for Mexico, or a set for agree and a set for disagree. But the reason we don't want to do that is because the Venn diagram is only helpful to us if the two sets overlap. So if you had a set for the US and a set for Mexico, the problem is that those are disjoint sets, so they're not going to overlap. There's nobody in the survey who's from both countries. So what we're going to do here is have a set for the U.S. adults that were surveyed and a set for agree. See, there are some U.S. adults who agree, and we know how many that is, so we know how many people will be in that overlapping area. So that's why we're setting up the sets this way. So let's go ahead and draw our rectangle for our universal set, and then we'll draw a circle for the US set, and then overlapping with that a circle for set A. Now if you think about it, the US respondents are all going to be inside the US set, so that means everybody outside the US set is from Mexico, because there were only the two countries involved in the survey. Okay, so the group outside the U.S. circle must be the set of adults surveyed in Mexico. And then the group outside circle A must be the set of adults who disagreed with the statement. So everybody inside set A agreed. That means everybody outside set A disagreed. Okay, now we can use the information here, the numbers that we were given. We know that 400 U.S. adults agreed with the statement. Now, the area right here where the two sets overlap, that's going to be the set of people who are both from the U.S. and who agreed with the statement. So that right there is the 400 people. Now, our other piece of information tells us that there were 1,060 adults who agreed with the statement. So from that, we know that the 400 people here, plus this other amount of people who agree, has to add up to 1,060. So if you calculate 1,060 minus these 400 people, that tells you how many people will be left over to go in this region, and that number is 660. See, 400 plus 660 adds up to 1,060. Now, they also told us that 900 of the adults who were surveyed were in the United States. So we know that the numbers inside this U.S. circle have to add up to 900. 400 of the people are here. The other 500 are out here. So 900 minus 400 is 500 people from the U.S. who are not inside the agree circle. Then we can remember that they surveyed 2,000 people total. Now 500 of the people are here, 400 here, 660 here. The rest of the people must be the ones who don't fit in any of the circles. So if we do 2,000 minus 500 minus 400 minus 660, that gives us a total of 440 people who don't fit inside any of the circles. Okay, now the people who are outside of the U.S. circle are the people who are from Mexico. The people who are outside of the A circle are the people who disagreed with the statement. So now when we look at our questions, how many people in Mexico agreed with the statement? Well, those are going to be the people who are inside of circle A, but outside of the U.S. circle. Okay, so inside circle A, but outside the U.S. circle. So that would be the 660 people here. And then for part B, how many people in Mexico disagreed with the statement? So the people in Mexico are going to be the ones outside of the U.S. circle, and the people who disagreed with the statement are going to be the ones outside of the A circle. So the only number that is both outside the U.S. circle and outside of the A circle is the 440 here. So how many people in Mexico disagreed with the statement? And that would be the 440. And let's keep going with example 3. So this one says 60 people were contacted and responded to a movie survey. The following information was obtained. 6 people liked comedies, dramas, and science fiction. 13 people liked comedies and dramas. 10 people liked comedies and science fiction. 11 liked dramas and science fiction. 26 liked comedies. 21 liked dramas. 25 liked science fiction. It says use a Venn diagram to illustrate the survey's results. So it's probably pretty obvious here what our sets ought to be. We need a set for comedies, a set for dramas, and a set for science fiction, and they all need to overlap. And there needs to be a place where all 3 circles overlap. So let's go ahead and draw a circle for comedies, and then overlapping with that, a circle for dramas, and then overlapping with both of those, a circle for science fiction. Now, the trick on these problems where you have to fill in a Venn diagram like this is to start where the most categories overlap. So that's going to be these 6 people who like comedies, dramas, and science fiction. That's the area right here where all 3 circles meet. So that's 6 people that go right there. So I really want to make sure that you understand why we can't start down here with the information about just a single category. And that's because these people that are in these categories that are overlapping with each other, these people are included in some of these numbers. So you can't know how these 25 people that like science fiction should be divided up in this circle. All you know right now is that the circle for science fiction has to total up to 25 people. So do you see why we have to start with the innermost region where all the categories overlap? Because that's the only thing we know for sure right now. Okay, so once we get that middle one filled in, we can go to the next one. So it says 13 people like comedies and dramas. So let's look at the diagram and figure out where is the region where the comedies and dramas overlap. And that would be this area right here. Okay, now we know that this area has to total up to 13 people. 6 of those people are here already. So 13 minus 6 is 7. That means that there must be 7 people in this other area. Okay, so now do we have 13 people in the region where the comedies and dramas overlap? Yes, we do. 7 plus 6 is 13, so that takes care of that one. Now let's go to the 10 people who like comedies and science fiction. On the diagram, where do the comedies and science fiction sets overlap? That would be the region right here. So we know that 10 people like comedies and science fiction. So this region right here has to total up to 10. So 6 of those people are here. 10 minus 6 is 4. So that gives us a 4 right there. So now we have a total of 10 people who like both comedies and science fiction. Okay, next we have 11 people who like dramas and science fiction. The dramas and science fiction categories overlap right here. So we know that this region has to add up to 11 people. All right, so 11 minus 6 is 5. So we'll put 5 people right there. And now we have a total of 11 people in the region where the drama and science fiction categories overlap. Okay, now we can think about the 26 people who like comedies. So we know that inside the comedy set there has to be a total of 26 elements. So 7 plus 6 plus 4 is 17 people. So we know that 17 of those 26 are already accounted for here. And then 26 minus the 17 gives us 9 people out here who like only comedies. So now just make sure 9 plus 7 plus 6 plus 4 does add up to 26. So we're in good shape there. Now the dramas. So we know that 21 people like dramas. We have some of them accounted for here. 7 plus 6 is 13, and 13 plus 5 is 18. So the 21 people who like dramas minus the 18 that are here leaves 3 people left over who like only dramas. And then the 25 people who like science fiction would be the total for the science fiction circle. So we know that 4 plus 6 is 10, 10 plus 5 is 15. So 15 of those 25 people are right here. And then 25 minus those 15 people leaves 10 people who like only science fiction. Now, is that everybody? We know that 60 people were surveyed total, and so let's total up here and see if we've got everybody. 9 plus 7 is 16, 16 plus 3 is 19, 19 plus 5 is 24, 24 plus 6 is 30, then that plus 4 makes 34, and then that plus 10 makes 44. So we've got a total of 44 people accounted for in our circles, but there were 60 surveyed. So 60 minus 44 leaves 16 people who did not fall into any of these categories. So now that we have our Venn diagram completed, let's go ahead to the next slide and answer some questions. So I've recopied our diagram over here so we can see it, and let's look at the questions. So it says, use the Venn diagram to determine how many of those surveyed liked comedies, but neither dramas nor science fiction. Okay, so we're looking for those who like comedy, but not drama and not science fiction. So if we go to the comedy set, all of these people, the 7, the 6, and the 4, like either dramas or science fiction or both. So the people who like comedies, but not the other 2, that would be the 9. And then for part B, it says how many people like dramas and science fiction, but not comedies. Okay, let's go to the diagram and let's look. Here is the circle for the set who like dramas, and here's the circle for the set who like science fiction. Where those 2 overlap, we have this region that contains both the 6 and the 5. But remember that the 6 includes the people who like comedies as well. So if we want to only get the people who like dramas and science fiction but not comedy, that would be these 5 people right here. These 5 are inside the drama circle, inside the science fiction circle, but outside the comedy circle. So the answer to part B is 5. Then part C, those who like dramas or science fiction, but not comedies. So notice the difference here. Up here in part B it said drama and science fiction. Down here in part C it says drama or science fiction. So they don't have to like both, but they definitely can't be inside the comedy circle. So how many people do we have that are either inside the drama circle or inside the science fiction circle, but outside the comedy circle? Okay, so that would include these 3 people here, these 5, and these 10, but then we would not want to include any of these people because they're all inside the comedy circle. So 10 plus 5 plus 3 is going to be a total of 18 people who like dramas or science fiction but not comedies. And then in part D, how many like exactly one movie style? Well, these 9 people here like only comedy and nothing else. These 3 people like only drama, and these 10 people like only science fiction. So the people who like exactly one movie style are going to be the 9 plus the 3 plus the 10, so that's a total of 22. And then how many people like at least 2 movie styles? So remember, at least is like they could like 2 movie styles or they could like 3. So at least 2 would be 2 or 3. So it looks like all of these people right here, the 7, the 5, and the 4, they all like 2 movie styles. And then these 6 people here like all 3. So the 7 plus the 4 plus the 6 plus the 5 gives us a total of 22 people who like at least 2 movie styles. And then how many people like none of the movie styles? Those would be the people who are outside all 3 circles, so that would be the 16 people here. Okay, let's do one more example together. So here we have example 5, and it says a survey of 250 memorabilia collectors showed the following results. 108 collected baseball cards, 92 collected comic books, 62 collected stamps, 29 collected baseball cards and comic books, 5 collected baseball cards and stamps, 2 collected comic books and stamps, 2 collected all 3 types of memorabilia. Use a Venn diagram to illustrate the survey's results and answer the questions. Okay, so again, it's pretty clear what our sets need to be. We'll use a B for the set of people who collect baseball cards, a C for those who collect comic books, and an S for those who collect stamps. And we need to draw our 3 circles so that they overlap all with each other and that there's a place where they all 3 overlap. And of course you want to label them B, C, and S. Okay, now where do we start here? If you notice, the very first piece of information says 108 collected baseball cards, but that means that this circle needs to add up to 108. So right now I don't have enough information to put the 108 anywhere or to do anything with that number. You always want to start with the piece of information that goes in the innermost region where all the circles overlap. So it says 2 collected all 3 types of memorabilia. We'll go ahead and put 2 in this region where all 3 circles overlap. Then it says 2 collect comic books and stamps. Okay, so that would be the C and the S. And so that would be this region right here. 2 of the people surveyed collect comic books and stamps. And so right here, we've already got those 2 people accounted for, and that leaves none for this area right here. So it turns out there are no people who collect comic books and stamps but don't also collect baseball cards. Okay, let's keep going. So the next piece of information says 5 collected baseball cards and stamps. So baseball cards and stamps would be this region right here. And it says there are 5 people in that category. Now 2 of them are already accounted for here. So 5 minus 2 is 3, and that leaves 3 for this region right here. The next piece of information says 29 collected baseball cards and comic books. So right here where the baseball card and comic book circles overlap, we're supposed to have a total of 29. 2 of them are already accounted for, so 29 minus 2 leaves 27 people for this other region. Then 62 collect stamps. So the stamp circle is this one right here. We've already got a total of 5 people accounted for. 62 minus 5 is 57. So there are 57 people who collect only stamps and not the other things. Next, we know that 92 people collected comic books. So if we go look at the comic book circle, we've already got 29 of those 92 people accounted for. So 92 minus 29 is 63. So there are 63 people who collect only comic books. And then we know that there are 108 people who collect baseball cards. If we look at the baseball card circle, we've got 27 plus 2 plus 3. That's a total of 32 people already accounted for out of that 108. So 108 minus the 32 gives us 76 people who collect only baseball cards. Now let's see if we've got everybody accounted for. So we know that they surveyed 250 collectors total. And let's see how many people we've accounted for so far. So if you add up all of these numbers, 76 plus 27 plus 63 plus 3 plus 2 plus 57. So far, we have a total of 228 of the respondents accounted for. So now 250 minus the 228 leaves us 22 people who responded that they don't collect any of these items. Okay, now our Venn diagram is complete and we can go to the next slide and answer the questions. Okay, I've copied our Venn diagram over here so we can see it still. So our first question says, how many of those surveyed collected comic books, but neither baseball cards nor stamps? So let's go to the comic book circle. We want only those who collect comic books and not those who collect baseball cards or stamps. So that would be the 63 people that you see here. And how many collected baseball cards and stamps, but not comic books? Okay, so here is where the baseball card and stamp circles overlap. So how many collect baseball cards and stamps, but not comic books? Okay, so we only want the 3 people here. We don't want to include these 2 people because they are inside the comic book circle. So that would be 3 people who collect baseball cards and stamps, but not comic books. Okay, part C, we want to know how many collect baseball cards or stamps, but not comic books. So baseball cards or stamps would be all of the people that are in either circle B or circle S, but we don't want to include the people that are in circle C, because we don't want the people who collect comic books. Okay, so those who collect baseball cards or stamps would include this 76 and this 3 and this 57. So the 76 plus the 3 plus the 57 gives us a total of 136 people who collect baseball cards or stamps, but not comic books. Okay, part D says how many collect exactly 2 types of memorabilia. So for that question, we want to get the people who are in these overlapping areas, but not the people who are in this place where all 3 categories overlap. So that would be the 3 plus the 27, and of course there are none in this area. So 27 plus 3 plus 0 gives us a total of 30 people who collect exactly 2 types of memorabilia. And then how many collect at least 1 type of memorabilia? So at least 1 means they collect 1 type or 2 types or 3 types. So in other words, anybody who's in these circles, all of these people collect 1 or more types of memorabilia. And if you remember, we added all of these up just a few minutes ago, so you might already have that answer. But if you didn't already know it, you could just say that the total here is going to be the 250 minus the 22 who don't collect any of those things. And so the answer to part E could be calculated by saying 250 minus 22, and that would give you your 228 if you didn't already remember from when we added these all up before. And then part F, how many collect none of these types of memorabilia? That would be the 22 who did not fit in any of the circles. Okay, you guys, so much for Venn diagrams and survey questions. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I hope you'll do some practice and go over your homework a few times. These problems are not hard to work, but you do have to know how to approach them. So again, I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next section.